So welcome everybody to the presentation on Microsoft Forms. I am recording this. I had recorded yesterday's as well, so um, that has all worked quite well. So hopefully I'll be able to share that with you all via YouTube link later in the day or later on Monday once I am able to upload that. So today we're just going to follow on from yesterday's session, or if you are already familiar with the basics, and this will just take you through a little bit more advanced stages within Microsoft Forms. So we're just going to be looking in particular at how how we can do a little bit more advanced sort of tasks, interact it with, let's say, things like Microsoft Teams, how we can share it with the public and get some more advanced sort of settings. So this might be a little bit more useful for remote working, or if you are wanting to involve parents in feedback, which is something I've done quite a lot as a faculty head, and also just trying to get some general sort of feedback here. I really appreciate you guys giving us the time on a Friday afternoon, so I'll try and keep this as close to the time as possible. So I should be finishing just after 2 o'clock today. So let's have a little look. I'm not going to go into the login of how we get into Microsoft Forms, but again, it's just found on the browser, on the app, on your Safari app. Um, it's not accessible through a specific app other than directly through Safari when you're setting these up. I'm going to give you a little reminder when we're organizing these. What we want to make sure is we are setting up the background appropriately. So we don't want to just be working with the green, because it becomes much more difficult. So if you look at group forms section, and I'll go into this a little bit later, I've actually personalized this a little bit more with things like numeracy ninjas. And again, something we're going to be looking at is you can see three individuals who've shared me some forms that they've worked on previously as a group, to allow us to do analysis as a team, and so we can research that. So that's what we're going to be focusing on today. So let's get started. Again, anything you're doing here, it's always going to start with a new form, and we can start to do a little bit more advanced sort of things with this. We don't actually always have to use text when we're adding the form title. We can actually use images if we prefer. So if I go to my the icon here on the far right, which is highlighted a little bit darker, that allows me to open up this image tool, and I can either upload a picture or from my iPad, which is through Photo Library. Now, I should say that pupils can actually make these as well, so they can actually create forms that they might want to use in the classroom to get a little bit of feedback and use it in a more sort of advanced way. And I'm going to just use the photo that I used yesterday, or actually one of the ones I used in London. Actually, I'll use that one. And instead of that, I can actually start to make the form a little bit more personalized. It gives you sort of a bit more interactivity, and it can be quite useful for pupils. So if you were doing something, let's say, more complicated like a maths formula, you don't always have to use the text. You could screenshot something that you've written in your iPad, or a formula or an equation or an image if you wanted to. So for our younger pupils, you could actually get them to do a little bit of taking photos and asking them to identify, for example, the type of animal it is. So if they were doing identification of groupings of animals, you could get them to identify whether or not it's a reptile or a lizard, or reptile or amphibian or mammal or something like that. So that's just from the title. So that's again just the standard title section. Um, One thing I've noticed is that you need to be a little bit careful about that. Um, is that sometimes if you put your first question there, it kind of confuses the kids or pupils when they're working on it. So again, you've got your different settings, your choices, and your other items. Now, what we're really focusing on is how we can use this as a little bit of feedback and hinge point questions. Now, again, really, that is fundamentally where this starts to become quite useful. It does allow you to create this, but I'm going to go into something a little bit more advanced today, um, and I'm just going to jump into that after I've shown you a few things. So before I get into the standard questions and so on, what we can do is we can change some of our settings. Now that's done through the three dots on the right here. And we can try and make it a little bit multilingual if you're doing languages, but I don't know how good that's going to be because I'm not the most effective language teacher out there. As you can imagine, as a maths teacher, my linguistic skills in foreign languages are limited at the moment. But if I go to settings, and I can get this drop down menu, and it can be if you were feeding back to parents or actually wanting anyone to fill this link in. So if the pupils wanted to send it home to enhance their learning, they might want to do a survey of their community. And when you start to give them a real life individuals, they're going to take that learning far more seriously than if they were just sending it out to their friends. So they could be given a survey task where they were to gather a range of questions from different people, and that's going to enhance their learning because they're now feeling like they have to think about who they're communicating with, what they want in response. So it starts to really take the survey to the next level. It's not just what's your favourite colour. They're having to think, well, why are we asking those questions and what are the feedback we're getting? So you can choose anyone can with the link can respond, and that's an open response, and one response per person. That will then so that's basically not acceptable in this situation though. If you do tick only people in my organisation and only one person response, it means you're only going to limit the number of responses. So if you were doing an analysis of your pupils in a classroom and their experiences in a class, you could just tick that one off. Options, you can set your start date and your end date, and you can shuffle your questions, and again at the very end you can send the receipts, and you can also get a response about the fact that a response has been submitted. So that's all found in the settings area, so that's giving you a little bit more, and that's the three dots on the top right here. The other ones are not so relevant, that's more to do with feedback to Microsoft and so on. Now, let's jump straight into this. I'm going to change my theme because I want to make sure I'm making it stand out. And then I'm going to jump into my questions. So if I go into add new, I'm just going to put in a text-based question, and I'm going to put in a couple of answer this question, close it down, and then it can add it as a long answer or text-based answer. If I go for a multiple choice one again, because these ones are probably the best for giving you a little bit of a hinge question, you can again add an image, or you can even add a set of files if we wanted to. Now, if instead of just doing the plus button, I did just click the copy button, replicate. So if I have a couple of questions that are going to be the same, I can just click the button next to the trash can, and that allows me to double the question. So if I have something that's very similar each time, I can replicate these questions if I've got very similar questions each one. Now, I'm going to ask for a set of questions on, we'll call it branch. Now, whenever I do a branching question, I often make sure that I have another section that I go to. So we're now going to look at what a branching question is and some of the options. So I'm going to require this one, and I'm going to put in an add branching. Now, the reason why this is useful is if you were doing a survey question, you might want them to actually branch off to a different space in your survey. And it could be you want them to go to one of the following questions. So what you need to think about before you add this branch is completing your entire survey. So I'll come back to that in a second. So, and we'll just say, hopefully this will go for done. And there. Reset. And I'll click back, excuse me, just got caught here. So before I do that, I want to add another section and branch 1. And I'm going to add another choice question in here. This is going to get a little bit more advanced and a little bit more as we go through it. I'm going to add another section again, and I'll skim through what I've just done in a second. And then I will make this a text question. So what I've done is I've made my quiz. I've got my first section. I've got my 3 answers here, and I've got branch. If they choose option 1, I want them to go down into branch 1, where they'll answer another multiple choice question. If they answer option 2, they can go into branch 2. And the way you add a branch is the same way as you'd add a question, by going to the add new button, but instead you just select the down arrow and then you can add a new section each time. So now let's set up the branch. You click on the question you want to branch off from, and then you go to the 3 dots. When you click the 3 dots, you get the option, select add branching, and then I'm going to choose go to section 2 for branch option 1, and section 3, if it allows me, to go to if they choose option 2. And then once I'm done with that, I click the back at the top of the screen. Then, once I'm starting ready to play, it shows me that I'm ready for branching questions, which is that sort of blue with 2 little dots next to the title. Let's see how this looks for our survey individual. So we've got a picture at the top, and they'll only see the first 3 questions until they get down to branch. Now, if I click option 2, it should take me to the text question, and it takes me there straight away. So as you can see, when you use branching, you can actually change the location where a pupil or someone you're surveying actually ends up. Now, I find that extremely effective when I'm actually doing hinge questions or starter questions. So if I'm wanting a pupil to do a little bit of learning, I actually might add a video for pupils to use within my question. And depending on the answer they give as question 1, it will either take them to a recap video, or it will take them on to another question, a teaching for teaching points, or it'll take them on to a set of further questions just to get them recapping and practicing. So let's see how that might look. So let's create a quiz this time instead. So let's put down a set of choice as our start question. Now if a pupil gives the wrong answer, I'll make that the correct, and the other two will be wrong. Again, these two will take them to another branch, and it's 2 marks if they get it correct first time, and if they get it wrong, it will take them to a different section. So section 1 is recap, or section 2 is recap, and I'm going to add a multiple choice question here, and section 3 is going to be a little bit different. Now, as you can see in this title, if I click on the video, the item here, now it's in a quiz section, you can actually add a video. And what you can add here is your YouTube URL. So if you've created something in YouTube that's a lesson for them to use, you could actually add it in here, and it would pop up the video that you would like them to use. So let's see if I can grab one just quickly, and I'll just pop it in. I'm just going to find a quick YouTube video. Hopefully this doesn't mess up the rest of this presentation by me going into this. I'll just go to Inspire Learning, where we're going to host the other education videos. And if I wanted to, I could take a quick video here, and I could take the URL from share and go back to my forms, and then I'm going to just paste it into here. I've done that very quickly, but I'm sure you're able to follow that, and if you weren't, you'll get a chance to recap that video later. So I've just been able to add a video in, and then underneath I can add a checking multiple choice question, so that pupils are then able to re-watch a lesson without me having to help them. So if there's 5 or 6 pupils who are actually stuck on the question before, we can actually then reteach them, and the other pupils don't have to hold up and wait for those pupils to be caught up. They can actually be, we've just done a bit of checking to see if there's an understanding of a topic in the starter, and then branch into, if they don't get it right, branch them into a lesson video. When they rewatch the video and answer the next question correctly, we can then branch them into the main body of the questions again. So it's a very useful tool for deciding whether or not children are able to, they're understanding, and if they're not understanding, actually take them to the correct location. So let's see what this starts to look like. So I'm going to take them, if they get it correct, they're going to go to the section 3. If they don't get it correct, they're going to go to the recap section. And in section 3, we're going to just go back. Now I've done that, I'm going to add in a new question saying understood, just to confirm their understanding here and what they understood of it. So let's see what that looks like. So again, you can click preview. Now we know that the correct answer will take them to the final section. Option 2 will take them to the video. And we're now actually able to take the pupil and let them recap the learning. So it allows them to be a more independent learner. It allows you to, when you review these surveys, actually check up and see who's answered that question wrong and who's had to have a little bit of a review later. So let's go back, and we can review all our responses by going to responses, and we can check what they've done and how they've answered by opening up in Excel. And that's the same for all our quizzes. I think this was the one I had used yesterday. Now, what you'll notice with these quizzes, I'll just actually quickly load that up, is I open up in Excel, I can download it, and it will actually tell me which pupils answered and what they've answered correctly. What you'll notice about these questions though is that there is a text box. So right now I'm going to go into how we can actually create a text answer and make it more personalized. So I'm just going to make a new quiz. I'm going to add a choice question, not a choice one, apologies, other than that. I'm going to add a text-based one, and in here I'm going to add a little bit of text on how I answer here. But I can give you a set of possible correct answers. So I can add a correct answer so I don't have to mark it later myself. So I can enter the correct answer being yes. Now they might not write it all in capitals, so I maybe just add another one, which is a lowercase yes. So that is one of the few annoying pieces about this, is you do have to actually add some of the variations that are possible. I think actually it gives you a capital, so I could give another answer. So 2, let's see, and then 2 might also be another one. So those might be my possible answers that I'll accept. So you do need to give us a variations of what those answers are going to be if you're going to give it in text for the pupils to be able to see the response. So again, I can check my preview, I can put my answer in here, put the number 2 in, it should give me a submission. I can view my results, and I can see I've got the 2 marks that were available to me, and it's automatically marked that. And again, the reason why that's extremely useful is because it allows me to actually add and put those points in. Now what I'm going to say to you guys is, we have, if you're wanting to work as a little team, or you're wanting to share this with a group of pupils when they're working from home, it's very easy. But the main way I recommend doing it is through Teams. You could do it through an address in the email, but if you had a team set up, or if you had something like Shobi, which might be coming soon for the primary teachers, or secondary teachers know already what Teams is, you could use it within your Teams channels. So let's see if I can take you through this. And actually, I've just realised I'm going to have a little bit of a difficulty because it wants me to stop broadcasting, which I don't want to do. So I'm going to leave that just now. But in Teams, there's an ability to basically, in your Teams channels, to create a quiz or an assignment, and within that assignment, you can take staff and pupils through and add a quiz. And the quizzes that you've got in this folder here are all accessible to you in Teams. And what you'll find is that Teams will automatically mark and give you the feedback for the assignment and what you've done. And if you create those forms within one team, you will get a group form, and that will show you exactly what you're looking at here. Now, let's see if I can get into Teams this way. So see if I can jump into my Go Teams. If I can, we'll leave it, and I'll add that in later as a post edit. So if I jump into, yep, hopefully my Teams here. Let's see if it's able to do that. It's not going to let me do that, so I'm just going to leave that just now. So I will add a little demo on how to add it into a Teams channel and allow you guys the review of what it looks like when you're presenting. Now, hopefully that was a little bit more complicated and a little bit more sort of the next stage, but fundamentally the main concepts that would come from that are how you share it, and how you can actually create branches and add videos and make your quizzes a little bit more dynamic. I should say I forgot to share with you how you actually can share these forms with colleagues. The three dots on the top right will allow you, if you wanted to, you could move it or copy it into that item, or if you go into the survey, you can share, and instead of it share to collaborate at the bottom, get a link to view and edit. So then what you can do is you can share that with your colleagues who you would love to be able to edit and actually review some of the surveys with. And that, guys, is the main sort of gist of the forms. What I recommend you do is have a little play around with this. It is an extremely powerful little tool when you're using it in the classroom. It allows you to recap learning. It allows you to personalize learning. It's a really effective starter if you use the QR codes, or if you're using the hinge points to actually decide on pupils' understanding. And you can add these to quite a lot of different areas. So one of the areas that I added it into, for example, is book creator, and I was able to create a book where, if you just look at the consequences of crime, it's not my subject area, but I can actually create these, and there'll be a link in here somewhere. Done. You can add a link. I think my answer is not in this one. Might be in this one. I'll leave it just now. But you can add your set of questions in here for, there we go, a link instead, and it can actually take you to the task through that link by clicking on the item and it will take you to the location that you want him to go to, and take you to that survey. And as I say, you can do your plenary where they can upload their completed assignment, they can rate the delivery, and that's another one that's really useful at the end of a lesson because it can give you feedback for their understanding. And I used to use it quite a lot when I was teaching last year for pupils to give me feedback on my delivery and actually how good they felt I was as a teacher in that lesson, how I performed, and it allowed me to sort of rate myself overall on the quality of my lesson. Anyway, I really appreciate your time. If you've got any questions, feel free to pop that up in the chat, and I will try and get these in. So thank you, Mrs. Gibson. So the best way to share this with parents is, in my experience, to use the share tool. I'll just jump straight back into Microsoft Form, and to use the link that's given here, but make sure the absolute key thing, because I've been tripped up by this before, is that this point here, only people in my organization can respond, is not selected. Is anyone with the link can respond. If you do that, then anybody from outside can actually respond to that. So if you were doing a survey on, for example, one of the ones that I did last year, I think it was, not last year, it'd been 2 years ago, was whether or not pupils would wanted to come along to a help session. So I was able to get this general sort of feedback, just when and where. I didn't know who the parent was, but I just wanted the numbers. But you could ask them at the bottom to sign their name. Excuse the noise just now. It's one of the cleaners. If I go to the three dots, share, and then anyone with the link can respond, and that will allow you to share it with anyone. And then you can just add that to your general mailing list. What I might also suggest you do is, while you're setting that up, go to the settings and make sure that you get an email notification that you've had a response, because that's a fairly useful one to just sort of give you a general idea that there has been responses and set up. But as you can see, anyone with the link is the absolute key way, and using just this link here by clicking on copy and then putting that into your email that goes out to parents or similar. Has anyone got any other questions?